Welcome to RPI's Tech Talk CloudSuite Series. My name is Keith Whalen, and I'm here to introduce today's presentation on v11 technical differences. Presenting today, we have Mr. Ken Foley, Mr. Jeremy Stolfus, Mr. Tom Severson, and Mr. Aaron Epps. At RPI, we are very excited to have assembled such an amazing collection of talent from the Infor Lawson ecosystem. If you enjoy today's presentation, please note that we do these every Friday at noon Eastern, and our upcoming schedule is available on the Work Out Loud events page. Please also note that we welcome questions. You can type them into the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We'll save them to the end so as to not interrupt our presenters. And with that, I give you Ken and Jeremy and Tom and Aaron.
Thanks very much, Keith. Really appreciate it. Hello, everybody. I'm Ken Foley. I'm the Director of Technical Services here at RPI. And along with me, I have Jeremy, Aaron, and Tom, as Keith said. Hey, guys. Thanks for joining me today. So we're going to talk about the technical journey to the Infor CloudSuite multi-tenant environment in the AWS cloud. We'll provide a quick overview of the multi-tenant world, discuss some things you'll need to do to prepare for connecting to your tenants. We'll introduce you to Infor OS and give an overview of some of the key core components that you'll be using there. We'll also cover reporting and analytics capabilities that are built right in your CloudSuite solution, and discuss different ways in which you can integrate data to and from your CloudSuite environment. We'll review some local system requirements to consider. And lastly, based on all the tools and solutions that we'll cover, we'll talk about the technical skills and the roles that are required for a CloudSuite implementation project and provide ongoing support after you go live. So we'll get into multi-tenancy. So many of you folks have probably seen this picture before from Infor. It's a good practical analogy to how a multi-tenant environment is architected. So as you can see here in the picture, each customer has a floor or a tenant in a multi-story office building, and all the customers share common infrastructure. You know, in the building, they share the same elevator system, power, heat, air conditioning, and so on. So as in a multi-tenant environment, everyone is sharing the infrastructure, OS, database, and application resources. Everyone's on the same version of the application. The core application cannot be modified. You don't reboot a server. In essence, there's no server. So with that said, you just can't connect to the SQL Server database directly and query your data. So there's different tools and techniques you need to use to get to your data, integrate it with other applications, whether in a batch or real-time online transaction mode. Infor also provides tools that allow you to extend and configure the core solution at a metadata layer, so you are not disrupting the core application, making it work to meet your business process requirements. So incremental updates are pushed out on a monthly basis, usually in the middle of the month over a weekend. You need to test your extensions and configurations to make sure that the incremental release does not disrupt them in any way. And Infor does offer a pre-prod tenant that you can subscribe to that will receive the updates about 2 weeks prior to the actual scheduled release. So it gives you some extra time to prepare for the production release. So some advantages of having your enterprise applications in a multi-tenant environment: you're always on the latest release. You're not falling behind or have to be involved in the installation or upgrade effort. It leverages the AWS Elastic Performance capability. So if you have a large business event, like an open enrollment, the solution will scale based on your demand. The solution is accessible anywhere on any device and has already built-in technical capabilities that come with your CloudSuite solution. And as they build upon those capabilities, you get them in every release. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tom to discuss some of the initial setup you have to do to get your company connected to the multi-tenant. So Tom, take it away, man.
Sure, thank you, Ken.
Yep.
Yeah, so the first thing that we'll talk about is user authentication within Infor's multi-tenant cloud environments. So when you're first given or provisioned your environments within the multi-tenant cloud, they all come with Infor's ping federate. So at that point, each environment is relying on Infor as the source of truth for the users, the credentials, the passwords, and everything to get into the system. Typically, most clients will use that just at the beginning of a project and then switch over and use their own IDP or identity provider for the authentication of their users throughout their organization. However, that ping federate does stay around throughout the life of the environment. It's, again, just not typically used. When it is used, it's used for consultants or whatnot that are getting into the system that aren't in your Active Directory. They're just given the Infor credentials to get in. So like I said, most people federate their Infor cloud systems into their own identity provider. So there are several cloud-based identity providers, Okta, Azure AD, G Suite, and then the most common one is the on-premise solution, which is Microsoft's ADFS. So what the identity provider does is it provides a single sign-on for your users. So they authenticate once into the system, typically throughout the organization, and every application that is federated into that Active Directory is automatically authenticated to allow the users in. Infor does maintain user role and attribute management. So your Infor security, of course, is stored within the Infor system, not on the Active Directory. The customer's IDP is responsible for invoking the login process. So when your user does go to the URL to get into Mingle or Infor's portal, they will be directed to your organization's Active Directory login page for authentication. The nice thing about this, though, too, is that everything within the Infor Cloud Suite is integrated in with that Active Directory. So all the CloudSuite apps, the API gateway, the mobile apps, all of those are connected in, so it truly is your single sign-on and single sign-off. One important thing if you are running Microsoft's ADFS is the versions that are supported. So Microsoft ADFS 2016 and newer is currently supported. One new thing that they've put in within the last few months is that all of your tenants, so whether it's production, test, development, or train, all of them can share a single local ADFS instance. You do have to open up a ticket with Infor to activate that to enable a checkbox. And what happens is prod is your main linked environment into your ADFS, and the others use a proxy to authenticate just to that single ADFS. All of that is set up within Mingle under user management. When you go into user management, you can open up the menu, and then it's under security administration and federated security to set all of that up. And one important thing to know is that the client is responsible to configure all of this. This isn't something that comes provisioned with your environment. You get your environment vanilla, like I said, with the ping federate, and then it's your responsibility to work with a partner or pretty much work with a partner, work with RPI to go in and configure that federation into your environments. The Infor Cloud does also support MFA, so multi-factor authentication. It is still controlled by your IDP, but it is enabled and set up within CloudSuite to tell Infor how to interact with your MFA solution. So the next thing we'll talk about is file transfer with SFTP in the multi-tenant cloud environment. So what is SFTP used for typically? It is within Infor, it really is used for a lot of the system file transfers. So your batch programs access these files via SFTP. So like inbound interfaces, like your global ledger transaction interface. So to bring records into your GL system aka GL165. The landing zone, so where you drop the file, is on an SFTP server, and it's consumed by Infor. It reads it from the SFTP server. All of the system database utilities also interact with the SFTP server behind the scenes. So all of your replication sets push the files out to the SFTP server. Any of your DB imports and DB exports also go through the SFTP server. IPA channels, so your file channels, are configured to also interact with a particular SFTP server and directory. So you can use your IPAs to read and write files to various interfaces or within the system across Infor applications. SFTP is often used as the destination for IPA-based interfaces. So if you're pushing out a bank file or whatnot from the Lawson system, it typically will read the data from Infor and then push files out to, via IPA, out to an SFTP server. Now, when you're setting things up within your Infor environments via the administration console, that is where you set up all of your credentials for your SFTP server. So you put in what directory, the main directory that your admin console is going to use for the system files, the server location, so the host, all of the credentials, what port it's on. So you set that up. The important thing to know, though, is so the admin console, there are two different admin consoles. One is for FSM, the other is for HCM. So they can be configured to use the same SFTP server or different SFTP servers. So you have the two admin consoles via the reveal pages that get you into setting up your FTP parameters. So the SFTP server requirements. So Infor does, with all of your environments, you do get a slice of an Infor provided SFTP server. It has a set of credentials that it uses internally for its system processes, but the client also then gets a single set of credentials to log in to do your various interfaces and whatnot. So that is provided out of the box with your various environments to set up and use. A lot of clients find that one set of credentials is not enough. So what they tend to do is they set up a SFTP server that they host locally to interact with a lot of the various interfaces, and they can control all of the different credentials. They can set up multiple credentials and multiple directories, set up the security in and around the SFTP to work with that. The only caveat there is if you are using your own SFTP server, that it does have to be accessible from the internet. So it can't be behind the firewall where you need a VPN to get in the multi-tenant world. With that, I will pass it over to Jeremy, who will give you some information on Infor OS.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so Infor OS, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the core components here, but let's, at a high level, Infor OS is really the framework to your multi-tenant cloud solution. So it is the core frame that holds the applications, so one or more Infor applications that you may have, and even with the ability to create links to third-party applications as well. And as Tom talked about ADFS, if those applications, maybe such as your timekeeping system, can be accessed, are all under the same ADFS, then you have a true single sign-on across those applications. So we go down through the list here. We'll touch on a few of these in a little bit more detail. Of course, Infor Mingle, which is the collaboration engine that's been talked about from Infor for a while. Ion, which is for a lot of your process integration, and then your Ion Gateway, Infor Document Management solution for storing and retrieving documents, and then, as Tom touched on, the Infor Federation Services for user management, home pages, and data lake and data storage. So we dive deeper into this a little bit. So Infor OS, the Mingle framework, this is the collaboration tool that can be used to share pieces of data with fellow users and comment on it. It provides links to that piece. So instead of sending an email around with a reference to a certain record or whatever, you can share that through Mingle, and that user can then click on a link and get logged or taken directly to that piece, that part in the application. And of course, security is all at play here. So if you don't have security and you share something, or somebody has shared something with you, you're not going to be able to access that if you don't have the appropriate security. Mingle home pages is a nice feature of Infor OS, so it can be your landing page when a user first logs into the system, into the CloudSuite environment. And this is it's a set of pages with pre-delivered widgets from Infor, and there is the ability to create your own. But with those widgets, they're small single-purpose applications. So providing a quick summary of maybe open invoices or purchasing POs that are open. The pages themselves are fairly flexible and configurable. They can display that content. You can control who has access to what pages based on security roles. So, for example, managers or in an organization might have access to some of their staff information from global HR. You have maybe a requisitioner who have a requisition page that shows a dashboard of their open requisitions and what they're waiting, items that they might be waiting for. And then, so this is, again, all part of that single sign-on piece of the Infor OS and Federation. The IDM repository, again, is another component of Infor OS. This is where you have the ability to store documents and link them to your application. So through contextual apps, those documents can be added or linked to a specific transaction data. So there is the document storage piece. There is the ability to do scanning and OCR, and that is through a third party of Effisoft. The documents themselves are tracked with versioning, and you can even route them through approval workflows and review workflows as well. Also with IDM is your enterprise printing. So this enables you to integrate your multi-tenant environment with on-premise printers, and there's an ION connector that can be configured and set up so that you can automatically print documents as they are created. This does replace the Google Cloud Print service that was originally used within the multi-tenant cloud, but in December of 2020, that service is being depreciated by Google. So the enterprise printing is Infor's custom-built solution to support printing. And then the other piece of the Infor OS that we'll cover is the data lake. So it is, we've heard a lot about the data lake, and basically this is used for reporting, but it is a way to dump your application data into data models within that data lake so that it can be used by burst. And, Aaron will touch a little bit more about some of this, but the data is stored as is. There's no transformation. So it's that repository for all that structured and semi-structured data. There's no need to define or have that data fit to a predefined schema. Again, it's raw storage, and it's just exported from those applications. And with that, I'll turn it over to Aaron for talking about CloudSuite reporting and analytics.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. So, when we think about reporting and analytics when it comes to CloudSuite, there's really, three different types of things that they can be categorized as. And for each of those, you have different tools that are available to you. So the nice thing is that CloudSuite really comes with kind of a Swiss Army knife of reporting capabilities. So you've always got the right tool to fit the need based on what your users are trying to do with that information. So looking at the first category, people often have things called work lists. Work lists are pieces of information that are often acted upon in real time, right? So they require real-time access to the data. They need to be updated in real time, and people often use them as kind of like a to-do list within the application. So work lists are things that people that are within the ERP on a regular basis or a significant portion of their day are primarily going to be using as they interact and update data within the system. The next one is reports. So reports are what we traditionally think of, right? You've got kind of an ordered set of information that people can then access. So you're going to use a tool, you're going to use Designer, or you're going to use one of the other tools that are included in CloudSuite to create what we call a banded style report, right? Where you have groups and subgroups and totals, and you can have pixel perfect reporting, so you can control the alignment of how that data is laid out on the page. And then of course you can burst and distribute that on a regular basis to people throughout the organization. And then the last type is dashboards, right? So these are often role-based, and they're often used to monitor different areas within the organization. And dashboards are often delivered to people that may not even log into the ERP. So this could be executives, it could be managers, and it allows them to have insights into that system, but the requirement for data is often not real-time. They need to look and see how things are trending over vast periods of time, maybe months or years. And then be able to get down to the details and make a decision about what needs to be done. So keeping those three categories of deliverables in mind when it comes to reporting analytics, you have a variety of tools that are delivered as part of CloudSuite. So for example, under the self-service reporting, you have, of course, standard reports and templates that are delivered within the application. You've got list views, right? Again, delivered ones that are built by role and can also be customized and configured to create your own. And then you have more ad hoc tools like Spreadsheet Designer, and then even ad hoc analysis, which is included for financial analysis within the application. So that's kind of on the end user spectrum of reporting analytics. And then you also have what we consider development tools, things like configuration console, where you're going to go in and perhaps do extensions or derive fields within the application. Burst provides two tools that you have for authoring content. Designer, which is going to be the tool, it's analogous to Crystal Reports, right? So that banded reporting tool. And then you have Visualizer, which is a tool that's going to create those modern dashboards with KPIs, visualizations, metrics, et cetera. And then also you have Application Studio, which is powerful and really allows you to interact with that multi-dimensional data model that you have in particular for finance within CloudSuite. There's also ways to get at the data and send it outside of the system. Maybe you already have a reporting platform in place, or you have a data warehouse and you want to blend information from your ERP. The good news is you have a number of ways that you can basically capture and send that information out to be consumed by a third-party system. So you can leverage replication sets, you can use file creation utilities, or you can use Ion to stream that information out to your enterprise and to other existing systems. So looking at the architecture of how this works for CloudSuite, so in general, the Burst or the Infor Analytics platform is the strategic direction, right, for Infor across all their products going forward. And in general, it works the same way. So when your system is deployed, you have an entire stack of tools that are available to you. It really is a full stack analytics platform, providing everything from the ETL capabilities you expect all the way up to doing visualizations and self-service. So to just kind of walk through this diagram from bottom to the top, a few things I like to point out. This is not a standalone platform. Of course, it's going to work with existing data sources that you have in-house today. So in addition to your ERP, you're going to have, maybe you have an EMR, for your healthcare provider, or you have other third-party systems or Access databases or Excel spreadsheets, or maybe an existing legacy enterprise data warehouse. This platform can tap into those data sources, right? Bring that data together in a way that's holistic and make it easy for the end user to blend information across systems, okay? So it's not specific just to Infor. Once that data is collected, It's basically pulled up and then created. It automatically creates a star schema compliant data model, which basically just means that it's really easy for end users to access that information. So it really gets rid of the need for people to understand complex relational schemas, primary and foreign keys, writing SQL and stored procedures. All that is gone, right, and is really managed by the data model. And what that semantic layer gets you, whether you're an end user looking to do some ad hoc analysis before a meeting, or whether you're a report writer or an analytics developer, you have easy access to that information by leveraging that semantic layer to put together those different building blocks of information to build whatever the reporting or analytic tool is that you need. And of course, at the top of the diagram, we have all the different things that are consumed. So of course, you can build traditional reports, you can build predictive analytics, dashboards. Everything is mobile compliant. So everything that's output from this is basically just an HTML5 compliant view. So it's going to work on your iPad, your iPhone, your Android device, your Windows desktop. Everybody can access that. And then I also like to point out there is something called the Open Client Interface, which allows you to get in and access that data model from other tools. If you have a particular use case or you have an affinity for a tool, or maybe you already have a tool that's in place, you can use that Open Client Interface to leverage all of the work that Infor's done to build out that data model for you and access it with the right tool for the job. So you've got a lot of flexibility and a lot of tools that are included with the suite. In addition, you've also got the Burst Agent. And so what the Burst Agent allows you to do is, you may be thinking, we're moving to the cloud. We're going to have some systems that are going to be multi-tenant hosted elsewhere. We're going to have important systems that continue to be on-prem. People want to report across both of those. How do we bridge that gap? And basically, the Burst Agent is a way that you do that. So it's a simple job application you install and host somewhere within your infrastructure. And basically what you do is you configure that via JDBC, web services. It's got all the protocols you'd expect to be able to connect to systems, retrieve information, and then send it up to the cloud so it can be blended with all those other systems for reporting and analytics. Okay. So as far as the stuff that's included out of the box, for CSF customers, you get two things that are important to know about. You get a pre-built data model, and the pre-built data model, I think, is one of the best features, because what it does is it basically serves up all of the information that's traditionally been maybe challenging to access within your ERP and serves it up on a platter, right? So anybody can get at it. So in the past, for example, if you wanted to go in and you wanted to interrogate your HR system to look at terminations and look at action reasons, right? Putting that all together required you to understand the relational database design and know the SQL to how to join this together to get the data set. And then when you got it, it was kind of this static point in time snapshot of information. The data model gets rid of all that complexity, right? You just go in as a business user and say, okay, I want to see employees by supervisor. I want to see termination reasons. And you can just go and click and drag and present that all right within there. And the data model handles all the underlying complexity. You don't have to worry about managing relationships, whether it's a one-to-one, whether it's a one-to-many, inner join. The data model gets rid of that and really serves up all of the information in your ERP and makes it easily accessible to you. So some of the other things that's changed is, of course, if you used it before 11.078, they've added some important financial structures to that data model. So that makes it possible to produce or to customize some of the delivered financial reporting templates that are delivered. So if you want to do, an income statement, a balance sheet, a P&L, CSF delivers those, and you just tailor them to your organization, and you have those statements available to you. Similarly, for GHR customers that are multi-tenant, you're going to get that HCM analytics data model, which again, it makes it easy to access all those different pieces and bits of information throughout your system and put them together to develop the information that you need. And of course, you also get role-based content. So, they've got a wide variety of different tools, right? So maybe you want to do compensation analysis, or you want to look at turnover. And these templates, they're great because they help you to transition from kind of that reporting mindset to more an analytics one. They're a great starting point to take what's delivered and either use them as is or use them as kind of a springboard to customize them to your organization and to get that content out and delivered quickly. So when you go in and access, I talked about that data model and what, basically what it does with that semantic layer. And I like to end with this just to kind of reemphasize this point is what it does is it organizes all of your information within your system and makes it easily accessible to you, right? So you can see on the screenshot on the left-hand side, we're in Visualizer, which is part of the Infor Analytics platform. We've got all our different subject areas, so it makes it intuitive to drill into those subject areas and navigate that hierarchy to find the different information. So whether you want to go in and you want to get something out of the general ledger, and then you want to blend that with something from payables, you're just going through that hierarchy and clicking those items that you want to add in to develop that report or dashboard. In addition to navigating those hierarchical subject areas, you can also search for something, right? Because there's lots of stuff, lots of bits of information. So on the screenshot on the right-hand side, you can see I'm looking for general ledger transaction functional amount. I may or may not know where that's stored within those subject areas, so you can just search it, and it's going to show me everything that's matched. Again, no coding, no scripting, no relationships to manage. It just makes it very simple to access that information in ways that are meaningful for you as you're developing reports and getting information that's stored within your ERP. All right. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy to talk about CloudSuite Integrations.
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. So, of course, we get all your data into your CloudSuite system, and there's always going to be the need to get additional data in and to take data out to maybe third-party vendors or things like that. So let's talk about a few different tools and options that are available to get your data in and out of CloudSuite. So inbound, so Infor Spreadsheet Designer, we've got ION, IPA, web services, ION APIs, and landmark database utilities. And then, of course, outbound, we've got a long list of items here as well. So there are definitely options. And then as you go through and evaluate your interfaces, there's some evaluation to do, right, to figure out what those best options are. And what you're going to find as you go through a CloudSuite implementation project is you're going to have a mix of all of these different options, basically. And it really just depends on the need of the interface. And it's a good opportunity to reevaluate your existing interfaces. One thing, we're all accustomed to doing is just, interfacing is done in batch. Well, this is a perfect time to evaluate, hey, maybe we can switch to a real-time interface because it's gonna help speed the processing because the data sets may be smaller versus a nightly data feed of a much larger data set that may take longer to process. So first up, we've got ION APIs. So these are our REST calls that can be made, web service calls that can be made from other applications into Infor to either read data or write data back. As long as the security is set up and permission is given. And basically every business class within your landmark applications are accessible to read and to write data back and forth to your CloudSuite system. These are really useful when you are talking about that real-time interfacing. So for example, I've worked with a customer where we wanted to interface in the global HR application, we wanted to interface with a background check vendor. And basically we got the API set up so that we could allow that background check vendor, that third-party vendor, to make an API call into their CloudSuite system to update the status of a background check that was submitted from the application. So we've got some landmark database utilities. So there's DB Verify, DB Counts. There's utilities to export and import directly into the database. Not necessarily the best way, but within CloudSuite, and whether you're talking GHR or the financial system, there's interface tables. So similar to the old Lawson V10 where we had various interface tables, that's the point when you would want to use those import utilities. And then that is truly for more of a batch type processing. We can export some cube data and then replication sets, and then there's also some purging utilities as well. Replication sets I'll touch on a little bit just because this is another key area that I think that clients like to explore because a replication set you set up and create from a business class, and you can export a set of fields, and then you do a one-time initial export of that replication set, and then the system automatically tracks, and that replication set can be set up to do an incremental export the next time that it runs, so that you can, again, minimize the amount of data. You're not necessarily doing a full file. You would be simply exporting what has changed within the system. So here's touching on that. So we're built, these are user defined, so you can select the business classes and the fields within that business class that you want to export, replicate out, and then you can also include derived fields and computed fields, which if you've done any work within CloudSuite and the landmark utilities, you know that those types of fields can be very powerful to do that. These can be scheduled to run on a regular basis or on demand, and the export replication sets to support multiple formats. And as I mentioned earlier, it's automatically incremental and sends an indicator whether that record was created, updated, or deleted. So you will get that information within your replication set as well. Stepping through creating your replication set, like I said, you've got just the ability to select your business classes and your fields within that. So with data lake APIs, so Aaron touched on this briefly, but there is the ability to query that data out of the data lake, again using APIs that are delivered that can be done with that, and multi-format results and result retrievals and things like that. Aaron, I will actually pass this one off to you.
Sure. So you know, the data lake APIs and the Compass Query Editor, you know, this is to familiarize you if you're used to having that direct, you know, ODBC access to your on-prem database. This is kind of the new paradigm, right, for how you access information. So data lake is just, it's a massive repository. As Jeremy said, it's schema-less, right? So you don't have to spend a lot of time governing that schema. You can stream information into it. Then you can model and put it together in different ways. And then you've got easy access to it to get at that. So you can access it programmatically, right, by accessing the APIs. So if you have a tool or you have a high-level language that you want to use to interact with the information, maybe to do some statistical analysis, machine learning, et cetera, you can get at it through those standard APIs. And then you've also got the Compass Query Editor, which gives you more of an interactive approach to being able to access that information. So you can get in and query that data. And then, of course, it does have a JDBC driver, which basically exposes any information that you put into a data lake in a way, regardless of how the information is structured when it's streamed in. It gives you a way to access that data in a way that's going to be similar to how you would have accessed relational information in the past. So if you have tools, if you have reports, if you have applications or custom programs, just know that you've got a way to get into the data lake. You've got multiple avenues to access that information and tools available to you to do that. All right. And now we'll talk a little bit about the local system requirements.
All right, thank you, Aaron. So the most frequent way that folks are going to be interacting with your Infor system is through the browser, so a web interface. Infor does support the major browsers that are out. The preferred browser from Infor is Google Chrome, but they do have support for Firefox, for Edge, and the important thing to know here is it has reached end of life, i.e. 11 and the legacy version of Edge, or running Edge in legacy mode to access data. So support has ended as of October 31st for those browser platforms, but every other browser out there is fully supported by Infor, Chrome being the preferred browser, obviously. Another way that folks interact with data in the Infor system is through Infor Spreadsheet Designer, so ISD. This is the replacement for Microsoft add-ins. The Spreadsheet Designer lets users query data from the system, bring it down into Excel. You can also do updates going through business classes, so full security and everything is enforced through the Microsoft Excel add-in. The versions that are supported of Excel for the add-in are Excel 2016 and 2019. Also, if you are doing the hosted Excel, Office 365, E3, and E5 are supported. To install the add-on, it is a web install from the CloudSuite Reveal page, so that it's a web deployed installation. Nice thing about that is, as there are updates to the add-on, it automatically updates. So you don't have to go out and rerun the install, just automatically updates within Excel. Printing and document output. So like Jeremy was talking about earlier, printing in CloudSuite, Google Cloud Print is end of life December of 2020. There also is, when you're talking about IDM, so Infor Document Management, there's an add-in for Microsoft Word that you can install from IDM Control Center. It's under the Utilities and Download. And what this allows you to do is, from within Word, you can customize document output templates within your IDM system. So document scanning and capture. So scanned images can be stored in the CloudSuite as attachments. So I've always been able to do that. Or more frequently, we're finding that folks are going in and scanning documents into the Infor document management system. For fully integrated scanning into CloudSuite, the workflow requires a desktop scanning app, obviously. So there are a few administrative tools and development tools to interact with your Infor system. The first is the rich client. So this is kind of a fat client download. It's a Windows desktop application that gives you access to Configuration Console. So this is where you can go in and do security customizations and whatnot. This also installs from your Reveal page within your environments, and this, just like the Spreadsheet Designer, also updates automatically. So if there are changes the next time that you launch the rich client, it will automatically download and apply the updates. For your developers, the IPD, so Infor Process Designer, is needed. So this gives your developers the ability to go in and produce the flows for IPA, for Infor Process Automation. There are some prerequisites of that, the major ones being Java, JDK, and Perl. This also installs from the Reveal page, and just like the rich client and ISD, it updates automatically as well when you interact with the environment. The last admin tool that we're going to talk about is XMSAT. So this is your XM administration. The important thing here is, right now it is a Java application which is installed from your XM admin page. So that it is a download and an install, but it is on the on Infor's development roadmap to be replaced by a web application. So the installation won't be necessary once that hits GA. As far as MSCM handhelds, there hasn't been a whole lot of change here. So you can see the models and numbers that are supported by Infor from Dolphin, Honeywell, Motorola, and Zebra. Again, there hasn't been a whole lot of change on the MSCM handheld side in the multi-tenant world. And then lastly, the MSCM printing. In order for you to do your MSCM printing, there is a printer agent Java application that does need to be installed on every workstation that is connected to a printer that you're going to print from. The MSCM multi-tenant supports all of your typical ZPL label printers. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Ken, who will talk about the technical team of the future.
All right, thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. So based on all this information we covered here, what technical skills or roles will be required of your team to participate in an implementation of a CloudSuite solution and then provide ongoing support after you go live? So I have a few items here. So one, you'll need a network administrator, like early on when Tom was talking about, connecting to the multi-tenant cloud. Basically, how do you do that? Understand the communication protocols for that, configuring ADFS, being able to troubleshoot and administer the network connection, and know how to monitor bandwidth throughput and troubleshoot latency that you may have in the CloudSuite solutions with your on-prem environment. You also need developers. We talked a lot about tools today. So there's a various number of tools, to access your data and to create extensions and configurations. So extending your CloudSuite solution. You'll need someone that understands cloud security model, the deployment architecture, single sign-on, federation setup, troubleshooting user application access, and provisioning, deprovisioning users. And then I have a few more here. Someone will need to know how to integrate data to and from the cloud with on-prem applications or third-party SaaS solutions. Having someone that can administer and support the solution is key also. They need to know how to navigate around the system, manage users, jobs, scheduling, application configuration, data management. They need to have some sort of understanding of the functional software, configuration, process flow, so they can diagnose or properly document and report to Infor any issues that could come up. They also need to have a good understanding of the roles and responsibilities of the customer and that of Infor Cloud Operations. And with that said, I just wanted to point to you that on the Infor Concierge, there is a document out there called Infor SaaS Delivery Guide. And basically it outlines the cloud services delivered by Infor and gives you a good idea of what to expect in terms of your responsibilities as the tenant, both during the implementation project and for ongoing support. So with that said, we'll open it up for questions. All right, let's get some questions coming in here. Okay, I got a few around federation, Tom. Let's see here. So for the ADFS instances, do you need a separate instance like we do on premise? Or can we use the enterprise ADFS?
Yep, you can use a single instance now. They've opened that up and enabled that a few months ago. So what needs to happen is you do need to open up a ticket with Infor Cloud Ops. They enable the feature. So basically your SAML metadata, it'll take the link from prod and use that into your enterprise AD solution. And then all of the others will generate a proxy link to use. So all of your environments can be linked to a single AD instance, which is a godsend.
Okay. And when configuring federated security, we see different IFS user lookup field options, UPN, email, federated ID, etc. Is there a common one we typically use?
Yeah, the typical one that is used, the predominant one is the federated ID.
Okay. And we have another question here. We chose Federate ID, but have not found a way to automate the updating of it in IFS. We use the manual import process. Can it be automated?
Yeah, we're using the clients that I've interacted with. We're doing the manual import process as well. I have not found a way to automate that at this time.
Okay. If we do find, we have Paul's contact information so we can reach out. And then we have another question. I think this is more for you, Aaron. Is there an example of a P&L we can show? And I'm sure that's referencing like the burst reporting and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We've worked with several customers to take those financial reporting templates and then tailor them. So we've certainly got examples. So, you know, the individual that asked that question, if you want, follow up with us and let's schedule some time and we can kind of walk you through some of the work that we've done and show you some examples.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then Paul replied back, Tom, that Infor states it can be done. That's the automating the import process. So we can probably take a look at that offline and get back with Paul.
Yeah, there is a just-in-time provisioning, but I haven't had a whole lot of luck with that. But I'll do some digging and we can get back to you for sure.
Okay. Let's see. We have a question related to IPA. What is the IPA memory size limit for a process timeout in multi-tenant? Single tenant, the max I think is around 32 gig. We've had a large 100K record files crash IPA before. Jeremy.
I think there's a 1 gig, a warning at 1 gig, but not sure what the actual hard limit is to stop a process. So we'll have to look that up.
Yeah, so Jeremy, I did contact one of our guys, and he believes that right now there's no hard limit, but there would be one coming in January release. So we could follow up and get back with Ruwan, who asked that question from Yuma. So thank you, Ruwan. We'll look into that. Got another question here. When moving to the CloudSuite, what end user changes in skill set training will be needed compared to those needed for V10, Windows, HR, Crystal, LBI, and so forth? LBI payroll. So, I mean, in terms of skill sets and all that, you know, we just covered, there's things within knowing Infor OS, tools and capabilities there. I know there's a lot of training available within Campus, Infor Campus. I mean, even like free stuff, you know, for foundational training. Guys, any other things you can think of that they should be reviewing?
For end users specifically, Infor Spreadsheet Designer, of course, is the biggest one. There would definitely be some Mingle overviews to just kind of get a feel for, you know, setting bookmarks and things like that within Mingle. You know, going over user settings and some of the notification features within Mingle, and also if you're utilizing Mingle Enterprise for content sharing or collaboration, those would also be beneficial to end users.
And Aaron, what about from the recording aspect? They mentioned Crystal and LBI here.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, you know, things you're going to want to look into, you know, it's going to be, there's two primary areas that you need to focus on. Learning, of course, the Infor Analytics platform, right, and the tools associated with that. And then also the analytical data model, right? So learning how the data structures are different, right? Because you're going from a relational model to one that's dimensional, and how you leverage that to create reports or to recreate ones that you traditionally did on V10.
Right.
Yeah, and the question also specifies like HR and payroll. Specifically, depending on what version you're upgrading from to going into multi-tenant, there's going to be quite a bit of functional differences as well. So there's a bit of functional training for your end users to get them accustomed to the new applications in multi-tenant. Okay,
we have another question in here. Can you use employee self-service with the IDM so employees can view 1099s, W-2s? Not sure if...
So I don't know at this point if Infor themselves is generating the 1099 or W-2 documents. I think at one point there was talk about templates for that. But if you are just storing them in there, documents can be linked and API calls can be made. I don't know that I've done that, but you know, that's going to be your single tenant applications accessing your IBM instance, so that might be a little challenging depending on how you're configured.
Okay. Let's see here. I don't see any other questions. I'll give you guys a minute if there's any more. If not, we'll close out the session. Okay, well, I don't think any more are coming in. I appreciate you guys joining today, this session. Have a great afternoon and weekend.